Hello and welcome to the Neuroplasticity Jumpstart course, where this part of the course is all about introducing you to somatic resources, which means resources where it is body-based, using our body to optimize our health and the state of our nervous system. Throughout this series, you'll definitely have an even deeper understanding about yourself, which will give you a lot of peace, a lot of solace, a lot of reassurance, as well as a lot of passion to really prioritize your well-being, which then helps everyone you touch moving forward, including the people that you help. So let's begin. What you will learn in this introduction are these amazing things. So first, we'll start off with the anatomy of the nervous system and the different states we have, and then an overview of the vagus nerve, which has a key role in regulating our nervous system and allowing for that neuroplasticity to occur from now moving forward, so we have lasting results. Then we'll talk about the concept of top-down and bottom-up processing with an introduction of this concept called the window of tolerance to really help us maintain our stress levels. And then we'll talk about what it actually means to have a healthy nervous system. And hint, hint, it's not just about being relaxed. Then we'll talk about the neuroplasticity principles to really set you up for success really, really quickly with long-term transformations, as well as this ADPI framework, which is coming from the nursing world, which is very, very useful to create changes for us and with our clients too. And then we will actually bring everything in action and put it together with your first somatic practice, which is a 5 to 10 minute tool. It doesn't take long at all. You can choose to do it once a day or multiple times per day. And this resource is really going to help you at the present moment when you're dysregulated and triggered, as well as just doing things on your own at your own time. So really powerful tool that you can start using today. And then what we're actually going to talk about what happens within the masterclass, the bigger masterclass after this, and the journey to really having lasting changes using our own nervous system. All right, let's start off with the anatomy. So this is a typical human being with a nervous system, and we have the brain and spinal cord that actually constitutes the central nervous system. We're not going to focus on the central nervous system, but what it is pretty much the powerhouse. It is the top level approach that we can use to regulate our nervous system, very, very important. But what we're actually going to focus in on this course is this peripheral nervous system, because there are a lot more fibers, as you can see here, that constitute the peripheral nervous system that send information up to the brain and spinal cord for processing. And we really want to take advantage of the peripheral nervous system, as it contains two very important parts. So the first one is the somatic nervous system. This part of the nervous system is something that we have some conscious control over. A lot of it is still unconscious, but we definitely have control with regards to the things that we can do here. So this part of the nervous system controls our muscles, our skeletal muscles in particular, as well as our sensory information from our senses. So vision, so sight, smell, taste, sound, and touch. This is what constitutes the somatic nervous system. And then on the other side, you have the autonomic nervous system, which is completely unconscious. It is our inner surveillance system that comprises of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic branch. We'll talk about all of this in detail within the next few slides. And how I like to think about this is that just the somatic is the things that we can control, and we can choose to put attention on. We can put attention on all of our senses, how our muscles are being engaged. And on the other side is the autonomic nervous system that happens outside of our conscious awareness, that is always working in the background to ensure that we're safe if there's any danger or if there's anything life-threatening. So we're going to talk a lot about this. And although we cannot always control the autonomic nervous system, we definitely have the agency to influence it using the somatic resources that you learn here inside this course. So let's go a little bit deeper into the autonomic nervous system. Again, this is the part of us that is unconscious, and I like to think of it as our inner surveillance system. It is the alarm, the internal alarm that we have that is always working 24/7. And within the autonomic nervous system, there are two main branches, which is the sympathetic nervous system and then the parasympathetic nervous system. And within the parasympathetic nervous system, we have two very different states, which are the ventral vagal state and then the dorsal vagal state. This is really super cool because when I was in nursing school and I started back in 2026, this was something that was not taught or given in great detail. There was no distinction between the ventral vagal state and the dorsal vagal state. We were just told that the sympathetic is a fight or flight, and the parasympathetic is the rest and digest. This was what we were told, but there's a very specific distinctions between the parasympathetic system within the ventral vagal state, which is a state that we want, the one that we think is quote unquote good within the parasympathetic branch because it gives us safety, regulation, and social connections. But there's actually a not so great line of defense that we have here in the dorsal vagal state, which causes us to shut down, freeze, even collapse, and faint at times. And so these are throughout the course, we will go into this in greater and greater detail each time. And by the end of this, you will know how to assess which state you are in, which is super, super cool. And inside our internal surveillance system, we have a multiple line of defenses. So if we perceive a threat or a stressor, we first go through our first line of defense, which is the ventral vagal state. And then we go into the sympathetic fight, flight, or flee response, which is our second line of defense. And then our third line of defense, if these two are not enough to deal with that stressor, we go into the dorsal vagal state, which is shut down, freeze, and collapse. So these are the things that these three main branches are the things that we are going to focus on theoretically, as well as help you regulate moving forward. So let us talk about our three lines of defenses here very quickly with an example. Say, let's go back. It's our caveman days. And somehow we hear some sort of weird growl outside our cave. We hear that growl and it alerts us and says there's a big growl. It looks like there's many type of animals that are within that cave. And so what happens first is that if we were part of a tribe, caveman tribe back then, we would first activate this ventral vagal state, which is look around to see what everyone else is doing. So this is the social connection. We're going to look around to see what our other tribesmen are doing. And based on that, that is how we determine the next course of action. For example, one of the tribes people are hinting that we need to run. There are saber-toothed tigers. There is a lot of them. We need to either fight them off or flee. And we decided at that time that we're just going to flee, right? There's too much of them. We need to run into a new shelter, which then now mobilizes all of our energy and starts off the sympathetic nervous system response. We start gathering up all of that energy so that we can run away. And we run. We run away from the saber-toothed tigers. And so if we find new shelter, great. We find it, all is good, everyone is safe, then that mobilizing energy eventually becomes discharged and we go back to the ventral vagal state of safety. If we are not able to fight, save, or flee, For example, we've ran for maybe a full hour, a full hour back in our caveman days. We're running out of energy, and cognitively, we also cannot seem to want to go on, or we are having a challenging time moving forward because our energy, we've tried to run for as fast as we can for as long as we can. When we realize our energy levels are lower and we can't meet the demand of what we need, such as run further along, then we go into our third line of defense, which is the dorsal vagal state. And in this state is all about energy conservation. We've tried to fight off that predator. We've given all of our energy. We cannot meet that demand, and so our body goes into an energy conservation state, which is the dorsal vagal state. This is where we experience something like shutdown, freeze, and collapse. We'll talk about freeze a little bit more later, but with the example that I gave you in regards to the saber-toothed tiger, shutdown and collapse is going to make more sense. So we run, we feel that we cannot run, or we are now stuck, we're in the forest, and there seems to be no way out. So what we do is we either shut down or we just completely faint. We go, and then we just collapse, or we just shut down and we say, nope, I'm done. And in this shutdown phase is actually our bodies have evolved to be very, very smart. In the shutdown phase, our bodies actually release chemicals such as prostaglandins in this state to protect us from physical and or emotional pain, or even mental pain. And so this is where we're just, lying there, doing nothing because we have not been able to run away from the saber-toothed tiger. So I hope this part was extremely helpful, because we are going to put all of this theory into what actually happens to us in our day-to-day lives. Now let us talk about the vagus nerve, because this part of our nerve system is super important in terms of regulation, and the vagus nerve has been termed as the nerve that is the epicenter of our mind-body connection. It is what connects our central nervous system to our peripheral nervous system. And as you can see here, this is a picture of where the vagus nerve innervates. And as you can see, it innervates almost all organs from where it stems from up here, all the way down to our organs. And so it innervates our throat, our swallowing, some of our facial muscles as well. It innervates our heart, our lungs, our stomach, our liver, our guts, and as well as our spleen and our kidneys. And so this should give you a lot of bling, bling, bling already, because the performance of our vagus nerve is actually highly dependent on how our nervous system is. So if you experience any physical manifestations, such as butterflies in your tummy, these are all the vagus nerve in action. Our heart rate, right? When we have to run off from that threat, our heart rate goes up because of that. And it can affect all of these organs. And if we have a very well-toned vagus nerve, and how we increase the tone of our vagus nerve is through these somatic exercises that you'll learn here. If our vagus nerve acts very well, then it has anti-inflammatory properties. So it means that we can really and truly improve our health and prevent ourselves from developing chronic illnesses. And if we already have any type of chronic illness, then we can definitely have it better managed. As you can see, it really, really affects and innervates all of these primary organs. So if we have a vagus nerve that's not functioning as well, that it can lead to pain, coronary artery disease, metabolic diseases such as diabetes. It can really influence our gut health and our ability to digest, as well as our immune function and our tendency to get sick. We all have experienced really, really stressful time in our lives. And, we have that big meeting or that big thing. And of course, we come out with a cough, right? the regulation has a big role in that. And through these somatic exercises that you will find here, you can ensure that that shit ain't happening no more. And of course, because it is a two-way street, the vagus nerve uses the sensory information from all of our organs up to the brain, and the brain also influences the organs of our body. Having a really well-trained vagus nerve helps us improve the communication between mind to body and body to mind, especially the gut-brain connection and the heart-brain connection. And of course, our intuition as well, because these are just natural sensations that we have, and we call it gut feeling for a reason, right? And really, the health of our vagus nerve is key to our not just physiological well-being, as you can see here, the health of our internal organs, but also psychological, because what is happening in our bodies highly influence the thoughts and perception and our mindset. So a healthy nervous system, some people think that a healthy nervous system is always relaxed, only about getting ourselves in that parasympathetic nervous system state. But it's not just relaxation. It is also very important, but it is not just about being calm and relaxed. If we cannot use the power of our sympathetic nervous system, that activation within our nervous system, then we wouldn't have things like passion. We wouldn't have things like healthy anger to place boundaries on people that mistreat us. So it's not just about relaxing, it's about utilizing that mobilization energy from the sympathetic nervous system that actually makes the nervous system healthy. Because if we suppress our anger, we know what happens, right? Anger suppression is actually very dysregulated. Someone who suppresses their anger is someone who is also dysregulated. And we can see that based on our personal experiences and with others. Now let's talk about top-down and bottom-up processing. We've touched on this a little bit in the previous slide, but what we want to really embody is that our system between our mind and body is a continuous feedback loop. A lot of times we've learned to just think positively, just think about it differently, just think about a different perspective. It's very, very thought-based. And again, that is very important and can definitely influence what is happening within our bodies. But what is missing in a lot of the self-help realm is the importance of the body, the importance of the bottom-up processing information. And so for definition's sake, top-down processing is the information or the messages that are coming from our brain and spinal cords, or our central nervous system, that travels down to the body. And if you want an official term of that, it's called efferent fibers. You don't need to learn that. That's just there, just in case you want to. And then bottom-up processing are messages from the body, from our sensory organs, from our visceral organs, such as our heart and gut and liver, kidneys, all of those messages from our organs, as well as our skeletal system and our sensory system. Those are called bottom-up processing. So whatever it is that we have in our sensory system that travels back up to the spinal cord. And based on this picture here, as you can see, what is actually happening is that there are a lot more 80 to 90% of the vagus nerve fibers carry bottom-up information. So that the vagus nerve that innervates from the top, like up to the neck, all the way down to almost every organ in the body, the top-down information is only 10 to 20%, whereas the nerve fibers from the bottom, from our visceral organs and our skeletal system, actually makes up 80 to 90% of the actual vagus nerve. So as you can see, super duper important. That's why we cannot think our way out of a dysregulated nerve system. We cannot just think our way or mindset our way out of the stress response when we're threatened. We've all had a moment in time in our lives where we just couldn't think properly. It's either that we were very angry or we were very, very depressed, and we might have said things to the people we love that we didn't mean, right? Because we were at the heat of the moment. And at that time, our nervous system was dysregulated, whatever nervous state we were in, either sympathetic or dorsal vagal. And in that moment, when a threat is happening, the part of our brains in the frontal cortex, in our insula, that is involved with critical thinking, decision making, those parts and the survival brain aren't communicating as well with each other, because we need to fight or flight or flee or shut down, right? That is the main, what's happening in our body. So thinking our way out of it isn't really that effective because the body still feels threatened. And so that's why bottom-up processing and using somatic resources is super duper useful. And maybe you've tried something like cognitive behavioral therapy before, which is more cognitive, a top-down approach. Again, it is not to say that these are not effective. They definitely have a time and place. But in order to have lasting changes and immediate changes, we want to be able to use our bodies and regulate through the tools that you learn here to ensure that the bottom up, our body tells our survival brain to lower and change its threat threshold. The top part of our brains, which are not functioning, the prefrontal cortex and the frontal lobe, aren't well functioning in a period of threat, actual survival threat or perceived threat. So we must now rely on our bodies to give bottom-up information to the survival brain and say, it's okay, we are safe, there is no threat anymore. So now it's time to integrate. You'll learn very shortly how important action is. And so there was a lot of science there. And what we want to do here is just take a pause and take a few minutes for yourself to process the information you have just learned. So take a pause. What are your aha moments so far? And how are you going to take the insights that you've learned here and apply it the next time you have a new stressor or new challenge in your life? Definitely write that down. It only takes a few minutes. And now that you have this powerful information, what are you most excited to learn now and moving forward? So you can definitely just write that down very, very quickly, and then open yourself up to learning and expansion.